welcome to Money Matters TV and our segment called Growth Stories, where we hear from entrepreneurs and advisors who share secrets and advice on what business owners need to know to grow. I'm your host, Mike Verrill, Vice President with the Sharp Financial Group. A problem for business owners is fractured business and personal financial advice. The solution is our unique integrated financial management approach that combines accounting and tax, business advisory, wealth management, investment banking, and family office services in a unique way that helps maximize value and helps business owners and their families achieve extraordinary things. From time to time, issues involving life sciences, technology, or healthcare companies may be discussed on this show. Those discussions are not and should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since the show is pre-recorded and shown at a later date, some of those conversations may no longer be relevant. It's always wise to seek advice from your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm joined today by my co-host, Katie Wenger. Katie is a transaction advisory associate with CBRE, a global real estate consulting firm. Katie helps high-growth businesses in Philadelphia develop real estate strategies that support their business objectives. Katie is also an advising member for the Philadelphia Alliance of Capital and Technology, also known as PACT, and is an active member of the Women's Network here in Philadelphia. Katie, as always, great to see you. Thanks for joining me for Growth Stories.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's great to be here.
So since we last spoke, I'm sure you've been very busy. Just curious, can you highlight a project or two that you've been working on that is you think of interest potentially to the viewers?
Sure, absolutely. We've certainly been busy. I think office and what the future of work is a big conversation for many business owners and leaders here in the region. We're working on a number of projects where we're seeing, the trend of flight to quality. So as many business leaders are looking to bring their employees back to work, a lot of them are looking at really nice opportunities and high quality assets. And we're seeing, many tenants kind of flock to this higher quality or expect a higher quality build out for their employees as they try and get them back into the office.
Great. So a high demand for Class A and trophy buildings. And what impact is that having on the Class B office space?
Yeah, I think we're kind of waiting to see what the impact is. There's a lot of talk about what it could happen, but not a lot of movement as to big projects. Many are looking at potential conversion projects, whether it's to fulfill this life sciences demand that we're seeing in the region, or the housing and multifamily type, conversion projects where we're seeing downtown. We're not sure if they're going to trickle out here into the suburban region, but, I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of shift happen.
I have read a little bit about the suburban versus office, city office environment battle. Are you seeing that play out, or people leaving CBDs and heading into the suburbs? Or?
Yeah. And, we've seen some of it, but for the most part, what we're seeing is just a lower appetite for risk downtown right now. And people are kind of more inclined to make moves out here in the suburbs where, a majority of people in the Philadelphia region live, and many of them would commute into the city, of course. And that ridership is still pretty low. So we're not seeing that commuting happen. That could change just like the world keeps changing on a dime. That might change in the upcoming months and year. However, right now we're still seeing an increased demand in the suburban region over the downtown CBD.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that and tune in to get your impact or your input later. I'm very excited to hear from our guest today, an entrepreneur who has a tremendous passion and drive for business. But before we introduce our guest, we have a question from one of our viewers. John Delmer from Philadelphia would like to know, how does inflation affect the commercial real estate market? So I know we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but just curious, obviously this is front and center for everyone in this inflationary period that we're in. And what impact are you seeing in the marketplace?
Sure. It certainly has an impact. And I think speaking from an occupier standpoint, so if I'm someone looking to potentially change or move or, lease space or buy space, construction pricing continues to rise, and that affects deal dynamics where it's causing whether an increased need of a commitment from the landlord and the tenant, maybe it's a longer term lease, or it's really impacting the amount of capital that needs to be spent in order to get a space to the quality that maybe someone is seeking. So that's just one way that it's impacting our industry, and I think it's going to continue to have a variety of impacts as we see this rise continue.
Gotcha. That's great. Thank you, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
John, hopefully that answers your question. And it's always great to hear from our viewers and to send to a future episode. Here's the instructions on how to send those questions into Money Matters TV.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
From his early childhood, our next guest today has always been wired to be an entrepreneur. From the time his Christmas wish list included a briefcase and an office label for his bedroom door, to pitching his career military dad to help pursue a startup, his focus has always been on business. We are pleased today to introduce James Lockwood, co-founder and president of the Lockwood Group. Jim, thanks for joining us today. Katie and I are looking forward to hearing more about your story and excited to have you. So thanks for joining us for Growth Stories.
Very excited to be here. Really look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Jim. So before we get started, do you mind giving us a quick overview of the Lockwood Group and the types of clients with whom you work with?
Most certainly. Again, appreciate the audience here. So to answer the question, really, how I like to start out is to share our why we exist, which kind of gets to who we support. We were founded upon a mission and a purpose to lead the way to mission readiness, with that vision to deliver that to the federal government, the Department of Defense, and our nation. So as we do that, our specific clients really are those end users, those soldiers, those Marines, those airmen, those aviators, and all those in the federal government that are seeking mission readiness. We deliver services across the enterprise within strategy consulting and within mission and operations, again, to improve mission readiness. So that is our main lines of business.
It's very exciting, Jim. We'll dig more into that later for sure. On our show, we always like to kind of roll back the clock, if you will, and try to get an understanding. We always talk, are entrepreneurs born or made, and try to get some insight into your childhood. I mean, we mentioned in the beginning, you got the Christmas wish list for the briefcase, right? So I think Alex P. Keaton, right? And maybe that ages me a little bit, but that focus on business, and business is really at the core of what was, drove your passion. But what was it like growing up? Did you have siblings? What was the household like? Can I give us some sense of that? Any jobs that you had maybe that kind of drove you towards that entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, great question, Mike. From a very early childhood, I think you hit the nail on the head in the upfront description. Very true story. As a child, I did actually ask for and received a briefcase and a sticker for my bedroom that said business and office. So it was very early on. My parents knew I had this attachment to business. My dad was, as you mentioned, was longtime military, government servant, and I had a attachment to business, finance, and really kind of dovetailed into what I believe a heavy piece of entrepreneurism is problem solving. I was always attached to that concept. I always had a spirit of that in all jobs I had. And I mean, it started from, early on, again, from high school days to, the aspirations on serving in the financing field, all the way into college when, again, I think we're going to talk about it a bit later, but some of the internships I had. But it really was that attachment, that early on, that sense of business. And I'd say, again, I mean, I'd foot stomp the problem-solving aspect, because that's really what entrepreneurism is every day in leading a company. It's all about problem-solving each and every day, and that's something that I love, and it's why I do what I do.
That's awesome. And that problem solving, did you always kind of have that innate ability to really be successful in solving those problems and really, leading as an entrepreneur? Or were there specific experiences in your career, whether it's that internship or, later on, did you have any specific experiences that really kind of shaped you to be driven to be a problem solver?
It was, and this kind of gets to understanding how I'm wired. I think it was mostly, to answer that question directly, indirectly, choosing more difficult jobs or internships, and I'll kind of give you a couple examples there, because I think from there, that's where I learned problem solving real time on the job, and B, I kind of understood how I was comfortable working in really aspects of uncertainty, in roles of uncertainty, and just having to figure things out. I mean, early on, I did a door-to-door job sales for an entire internship summer, where I was a single entrepreneur, and I was tasked with knocking on 150 businesses in a day. I was just a sophomore in college. And then over the course of that summer, I was to build a team, build out my market. And then at the end of the summer, I mean, I'd have a sales team, and I'd be, which is how the summer ended. And then I went back to college. Followed that up with the summer to follow. And I took on, again, a very challenging internship where I was basically a full book life insurance agent, selling life insurance products as a junior in college. So those two kind of micro examples, I think, really point back to just jumping into the deep end of the pool pretty consistently and constantly. And because I don't think problem solving is something you learn necessarily. I think it's just something you become comfortable with, and something where, I mean, problem solving a lot of times is you solve problems more on the outside than you do on the inside through other people, through your teams, through your advisors. So that's how problem solving came about for me.
Well, that talk about learning on the job, right? The selling door to door. I mean, first of all, you have that, that rejection. Obviously, 150 doors a day, and you're going to get a lot of no's, and so you learn quickly how to solve problems in that environment, I'm sure. And we always seem to see on this show that successful entrepreneurs also have a sales bent, right? They get that driving new opportunities and new clients to their business, their product, their service. That's the lifeblood of continuing to grow. So you certainly got that experience right up front. But at some point, or I guess 2009, I think you mentioned, was the year you'd taken all that experience and you teamed up with your dad. That's pretty neat. That's something that I think a lot of people think would be an incredible opportunity to maybe look at a successful parent and partner with them and create and build a business. So you did that. Can you talk to us a little? How did you go to your dad? What was his original, response when you talked to him? Take us through that experience.
Certainly. Yeah. So that was exciting. I mean, it was a very exciting prospect to do just that. I mean, I looked up to my dad. My dad was, graduated from West Point, served the Army for 30 years, was very well respected, had, I'd say his biggest quality, and one of the biggest things I learned from him, and I learned from him in business, and it is one of our main core values. He was always looked at as somebody that operated with ethics and integrity, which was very, very important. and was something he instilled on me early on, and something I really looked up to him on. So I was, really, how did the journey start? I kind of talked a bunch about this desire to start a business. This was just seemed to be the right time. I had been through a couple jobs out of college. None of them really fulfilled me, but I learned a lot from them, but none of them gave me the fulfillment that I was looking for. So I had transitioned out from a job, and I said, now's the time. Let's figure this out. So from there, quite candidly, I wrote a letter to my father. I said, all right, this is our opportunity to create, a family legacy, and opportunity for us and all future, both, I'd say, family members and now our Lockwood group team members, a future. I said, and I asked him some pretty basic questions about the industry, about the business. None of them he objected to. Said, this is very achievable for us to do together. And that's, from there, we started the business in 2009 and formally launched in 2010.
That's awesome.
That's amazing, and takes a lot of courage, I think, especially in a time frame that was likely uncertain. 2009, similar to times like we're having today, where there's not a lot of predictability in the marketplace. So that's incredible. So what did the early days look like, when you took that leap and took that jump? What was it like starting?
Yeah, and I think and I don't know the broader metric of entrepreneurs, but I think, there's some that have a set X, Y, Z plan, and there's some that have the spirit. I'd say we're on the spirit side. We always had a plan, but I'd say what carried us on, and obviously even carries us today, is the spirit. So early on, we learned through spirit, trial and error, how challenging it was to, break into the professional services market within the federal government, Department of Defense. The metric that was educated to us very early on was 18 months was the average runway. So in learning that, what we did early on in our first several months in business, through trial and error, we realized, again, just through being active in the marketplace, that we actually had a service to sell very early on. And it kind of gets back to kind of the founding of the business, which I shared up front, really was on the back of my father's, reputation in the marketplace, his knowledge of the marketplace. So what we did is we decided to package that, and we packaged that into a consulting service that we offered very early on in the business, which is very critical for us for a couple of reasons. To get off the ground, it was very complimentary to build our story, to get going before we can get going in the services side of things. And also, obviously, from a capital standpoint, it helped us on the capital run in actually getting very good early revenue and a very early good growth numbers until we formally moved into the professional services market to servicing the customers we have today.
That's fantastic. And did you ever have, that kind of that first step that really kind of drove your business success? Was that, you mentioned kind of breaking into that marketplace, that industry, despite a great reputation. Was there something that really just kind of pushed you over the edge, and you kind of had that moment where you're like, okay, we got this?
Yeah, I think if I was to look at the 12-year, we're now almost 13 years old, the life cycle of our business, I'd say, the first several years were, very much trial error. In the tech industry, you probably call it product market fit. I'd say it's no different. So we're working that path. I'd say early on, as we started getting attachment to customers and starting to learn really what our customers wanted and how to deliver that service, as we got into that tail end of the 5 years, is where I think we got some illumination on, what our offerings are and how do we, expand those offerings to new clients. Year 5 through year 10 was really the focus on kind of building out the platform and starting to instill, the elements of growth we needed within the platform. And that's really kind of fast forward to today. I think so. To kind of get back to the direct question, really was in those early years. I think it's some early trial error, but then I think from there we got a sense on what stuck, and then we try to duplicate it at a small scale. And now we're obviously now trying to duplicate it at a much larger scale.
Do you ever have times in those early days where you started to doubt yourself, Jim, or you just felt a commitment to keep pushing forward?
Well, there's always roadblocks to get over. I mean, up until now, and I know that doesn't state to the question directly, but yeah, I mean, there was situations of extreme challenge. I mean, again, going in it with a spirited mindset, not having all the answers, and I think we'll get to a bit on how we got the answers over time. We had to figure things out. So there was, instances. I mean, I can remember early on we had probably 75% of our business in one contract, and that one contract was unexpectedly compromised due to, not surprisingly, that we kind of deal with in our industry, just government contracting complications. So we were, we luckily got through that phase, but very early on, we then learned, obviously, the importance of customer diversification and expanding out that model. So yeah, there was instances, throughout the business that, to this day, that are challenging, and you have to find the right answers, and that's really what I think goes through the growth over time, is making sure you get those right answers.
Part of what we talked about in the past was kind of your reliance on outside advisors and mentors. Sometimes entrepreneurs try to do it themselves. That was very progressive of you to reach out and form those relationships to help you. Can you talk about like what your mindset was? Why were you so open to that in the beginning, and talk a little bit about how those folks have kind of helped you along the way as you've grown the business?
Yeah, great question. And certainly I stand by that aspect of getting outside advice. So funny enough, I'll share a very recent illumination of that. So I recently, we posted we got our first contract win with a new client with the Navy. So that was posted. We pushed that out on social media, and one of the commenters on the social media post was actually my very first advisor mentor in the space. Actually said, "Oh, he's like, great to see you guys are still doing well," and that's really kind of from the very beginning, the advice that we've gotten. I mean, from not understanding how this industry operates, as I shared, we really went in it at a spirit. We had spirit. We wanted to solve problems. We wanted to do good for the soldier. So early on, we got some specific advice how you do business with the federal government, and then from there, we had to learn aspects of business. How do you build teams? How do you do finance at the macro level? How do you do all those elements? So we had to get advisors that help us on the business side. And then really, I've had some impactful advisors, one particularly that's, a personal mentor, has been an advisor of the company for 5+ years. He's an industry, if you had the 10 best industry minds, he'd definitely be top 5. I was fortunate enough to read his book 5 years ago. It's about the only book that's specific to our industry. Fortunate enough to get him to jump on board to our team, and his advice has been invaluable. Really sounding board for anything and everything that I've needed along the way. And I don't know. And I think the question back was on specifically advisors and advice. I don't know. I seek advice in all areas. I mean, advice in elements of sales. We talk about sales. Sales is communication. I've sought advice in communication. I've found ways to improve communication. I mean, so I feel like it's very holistic. Advice is both personal, but it's also business, but it's also personal. So I don't know. I'm a big believer in advice in all areas, and it's just something I think is critical to be a successful entrepreneur is having that mindset.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about how you got here with, your mentors, your advisors, and your entrepreneurial spirit. And, as we look towards the future, do you have kind of a long-term plan in mind for the Lockwood Group? And are you looking to continue to grow? And then what would that look like to you from your perspective today?
Yeah, I mean, we're all about our mission. I mean, our mission is to lead the way to mission readiness. I mean, we're here. We're to impact the federal government, Department of Defense, and all agencies with that. Currently, we do business in just a segment of that. I mean, we've got clients really within the Army. We're looking to expand our mission, our vision across the Department of Defense. We're looking to expand our vision across the federal government. We really want to impact every soldier we can, every sailor, every Marine, every airman. We want to deliver that customer-centric, customer-first service mindset. We see a lot of our competitors and others in industry may be more kind of focused on other elements, not so customer-centric. We firmly believe that our customer is, those end users. We design our business model around that, and we really want to expand it. We want to expand it into new geographies, into new markets. In doing business with our client, who our client is, the world is our oyster. We have no restrictions into geography. We have no restrictions into where we can do business. Our vision is to deliver that as far as we can.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And so you touched on it a little, mentorship and having that entrepreneurial spirit and a vision for what the future could hold and being so close to your mission. But what maybe are the top 3 things you would recommend to someone listening today or watching today if they're, in your shoes back in 2009, ready to take that leap? What advice would you give them?
Certainly. So I think we hit on one a lot in the topics. It is advisors, and I think it's in advisors in all areas. It's advisors not only inside your business, it's advisors in your own business, in your own personal business skills. I fully, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, and I know I won't go to the next level without those right advisors and that right team around me. So advisors is one. Market research is the second one. We're very thoughtful in how we do things. Very thoughtful in where we focus our time and energy. In what you pursue, as you guys know, as much as anybody, it's all about time. So time is something you can't get back. The importance of market research to not waste your time is a key element. So I'd say second is market research. And third is just a general piece of advice. Don't ignore the federal government as a client. Federal government and Department of Defense is the largest enterprise in the country. They buy everything. They buy everything from socks, gloves, to financial services, to training services, to, as we all know, planes and trains. So that would be my third piece of advice. So again, advisors, market research, and don't ignore the federal government as a client.
Thank you so much, Jim. This has been terrific. And congratulations on all your success, you and your dad working together. That's fantastic. What a great story. And thank you, Katie, for helping me co-host today. The next guest on Money Matters TV is Todd Reed of Keller Williams. As a reminder, you can download the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, as well as see programs on the YouTube channel, money-matterstv.com. Thank you for joining us for Growth Stories.